If you're going to win with Jackson Arnold, there's three things that need to be fixed. Two of them should be easy. One of them, not so much.
In the world full of podcasts, he's the undisputed heavyweight champion of hot takes, an Auburn sports homer, master of the boog, and message board legend. Get your buttons buttoned and your hats flattened because the Top Button Podcast is about to kick off. And you don't want to miss your courtside seat. Now, here's your host, Charlie Five.
Yes, sir. We're back. It's another episode of the Top Button Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Rush, a.k.a. Charlie Five, and we are ready to get after it. If Jackson is your guy, if Jackson is the guy you're going to roll with and you're going to try to win with, there's three things that really have to be fixed. And I truly believe two of them can be fixed fairly easily. The last one is going to be a lot tougher. We're going to talk about those in detail here in just a second. It's going to be a lot of fun. But before we do that, let's give a quick shout out to Rowback.com. Use coupon code BARN20 to take 20% off your order. Polos, hoodies, pullovers, shorts, pants, joggers, hats, visors. They got everything you can imagine for your apparel needs. They even have Auburn licensed apparel. You've seen the stuff we have. It's fantastic. Make sure you use coupon code BARN20 to save big. Been getting some text messages about some orders you guys have been making. That's awesome. So show them some love. It's rowback.com. I still think you can win with Jackson Arnold. But you got to help the guy out a little bit. Some of it's on him. Some of it's simply you just got to help him out. And there's three different areas that I think have to be fixed if he's going to be successful, if you're going to be able to be successful with him. And like I said, the first two that we're going to talk about, I think can be fixable. And then the last one, I don't know. I don't know if it can be fixed. You may just have to work around it. But number one is it's so easy to say the play calling sucks. It's so easy to say it's all the fault of the play calling. And I want to be very specific when I say this. A play can be good and still be bad. What does that mean? You can call a play that makes sense. You can call a play that gets a guy open. You can call a play that is in the words of Pat McAfee, a 100%er. You can call a 100%er. But if the quarterback can't execute, if your offensive line can't execute it, if the communication hinders them from being able to execute it, it's a bad play. Sure, you can put it on a screen and you can show exactly why this route combination got this guy open. You can show exactly why it made perfect sense in the scenario. You can show why it would have picked up the first down. It would have scored the touchdown. And you can reason totally that it was the right play. But if it can't be executed, it's a bad play. Period. End of story. How many times during Gus Malzahn's tenure did you hear the term execution? We just got to execute. It comes to a point where if you can't execute, you have to find things that they can execute. Now, I know that sounds a lot like, hey, you only need to call the plays that work. Well, that's easy, right? Just only call plays that work. I say that tongue in cheek, but in reality, no, not every play will work. But it has to be at least plays that have a higher percentage chance of the personnel you have being able to execute them. Now, that sounds like I'm sure that I'm oversimplifying how easy that sounds. I know that's incredibly difficult with how complex defenses are. You're about to go up against one of the best in the country. I understand all that, but what I'm boiling this down to is at this point in time of the season, when you have 2 weeks to prepare, you got to find what you do well, and you got to go with that. You got to pick out what you do well And you have to build from that, period. End of story. Where Auburn excels, at least in my opinion, and I think a lot of people's opinion, is when they can fire off the ball, get the read option game going, bring that jet sweep motion, a lot of eye candy for the defense, pounding the ball and then throwing it off play action. And it may look ugly. It may be frustrating. It may not be mega explosive. But currently, unless there's some drastic changes, currently, that is what you got to work with. And I can try. You can't really 1,000% put the onus on any position group on the offense and say, this is the reason because we have to do this, or that's the reason we have to do this. This person is the reason we have to do this. There's a breakdown in communication. There's something broken that they can't quite seem to figure out. And I think we'll talk about a little bit of it later. So what you have to do currently is find what do we execute well, and we have to start there. What can we put together that we can execute well to move forward? And literal and figuratively. Literally move forward down the football field and figuratively move forward as a offensive, system, offensive group. Move forward, have better success. So it's not just calling plays that I can draw up that work. It's calling plays that can work, and we have a high level of probability of being able to execute. I think that second part is the key. I got so tired of hearing, and I don't necessarily hear it so much from Hugh on like, hey, the plays are there, we're just not executing, or hey, I called this guy wide open. Maybe at times he's done that. To me, he just seems super defeated when he talks about the offense just in general. But it gets frustrating when when the mindset is the plays are there, the players are just not making them. You got to find the plays they can make, bro. That's kind of the deal. That's part of the job. I've seen it, and that's what's frustrating. I've seen them be able to put together good game plans against tough teams to give yourself a chance to win games and control the ball. I've seen it happen. So do what you did against Georgia in 2013, and now you got better talent that you can maybe have some more explosive plays while you're controlling the ball. And maybe you got more players on defense to be able to come up with that big stop on that last drive. Do what you did against Alabama in 2023. All those game plans were right there in the middle of the season where it felt like, hey, things are clicking, and it was simple stuff. If you got to go back to the basics, man, go back to the basics. These wide receivers, I'm sure, are frustrated, but they're probably way more frustrated about losing than they are, not getting their quota of touches. It's you can get over a lot if you're winning. So play calling, not just simply calling better plays, but just a better game plan in general to accentuate what Jackson can do well, which to me is run the ball and run an off of play action. It's not just throw a check down and then throw it deep. Like, we got to work the middle, work the intermediate routes, like those type of things that he does well. That's what you got to figure out, and that's what you got to be able to call. And then the offensive line's got to be able to block it. And that's what we're going to talk about next, is offensive line play, because it's much more than just guys getting beat. There's a lot of stuff going on. We'll talk about that in just a second. We'll be back right after this. Another thing, obviously, that could help Jackson is better offensive line play. And the more I drill down and the more that I research and the more that I talk to people that know more about football than me, the more I think this is fixable. I don't claim to be a football expert. I don't claim to be, you couldn't put a headset on me and get anything productive. Okay. So understand that when I go here. But what I think I am able to do is ask the right questions. Instead of just the offensive line sucks, you got to yank Xavier Chaplin out. You got to change the personnel. You got to do this, you got to do that. I'm asking a different question. It's less about that we have to pull him out. It's more about why is he not succeeding? Why did he only give up like 4 sacks in 2 years at Virginia Tech, and now all of a sudden he can't block anybody? Why is that happening? Why can sometimes he have the perfect pass set and look like that first rounder, and then other times he looks completely lost? Because to me, that doesn't sound like a talent thing. To me, it sounds like I'm just not 100% sure what I'm supposed to be doing thing. So if you could fix that piece of it, you're probably going to have you a pretty solid offensive lineman at left tackle, because I think the kid's talented. I think the kid's pretty good. He's very athletic, but there seems to be something in his head there's something in his head that he's having to think that extra half second instead of reacting. And this kind of goes back to a little bit number one. There seems to be so much confusion on the offensive line, period. And it doesn't seem talent. It doesn't seem like it's a talent thing. When they fire off the ball, I feel like they can block just about anybody. They can gain you yards on the ground easily. There's been times you've seen Jackson have multiple seconds to make a decision. So that tells me they know how to pass block. And it's not just whenever there's, 6 or 7 man protection. Like I've seen them be able to do it with just 5 or 6 and give Jackson plenty of time to make a decision. One of the big things in a football game, especially when the offensive line is that's very, very important, is especially nowadays, is being able to get in the right protections. So it's when we were growing up and playing football, you called a play and you just went and you blocked either the man in front of you or the gap to your left or the gap to your right. It was pretty simple. Well, now there's all kinds of different things that you can do to be able to attack different fronts or different looks that you think you're getting. And those, when you hear people talking about checks at the line, especially with protections, that's what they're talking about. Checking the offensive line in and out of the protections that they're in into something that's a little bit better. In some offenses, the center makes those checks. In some offenses, the quarterback makes those checks. So I asked around, talked with Tyler Siskey, and in Hughes' offense, the quarterback makes the protection checks. Okay. So the quarterback walks up and says, hey, we're going to do a slide. We're going to do a slide protection left. We're going to do a slide protection right. He's getting them set to where they have to be, where they need to be, so that the quarterback feels comfortable that the protection is going to be checked into where he feels like the pressure is coming from. I watched Aaron Murray's breakdown of, I love watching Aaron Murray every single week that he talks about Auburn. And a lot to me, and he mentioned it, multiple times. A lot of the issues seem to be us getting checked into the wrong protection or into a protection that's maybe not even necessary that puts other offensive linemen on an island. So if you're sliding in one direction, that's going to put the tackle on the opposite side of where you're sliding on an island. And a lot of times it feels like that's where some of the issues come from. So that's just merely communication and identification. That can be fixed. You sit in a room and you're constantly looking at defensive fronts. Boom, boom. What protection is this? Tell us how we check into this. Tell us what we need to check into here. And you're doing it fast, and it's just constant repetition to where it becomes natural. I'm not putting that all on Jackson, but it does seem like there seems to be some disconnect into how to get that offensive line set up. And it's putting people in bad situations. And in turn, it's putting Jackson in bad situations. If he can stop worrying about the offensive line and get them into the right protection, maybe he can make quicker, better decisions. And then the second piece of the offensive line play is the dadgum snap count. We've talked about this for a week now. You heard Reese just go off on it. You've heard a lot of people go off on it. If Xavier Chaplin does not know the snap count and he doesn't want to jump off sides, he doesn't want to have a false start. Apparently that makes people upset if you say jump off sides on the offensive line because we want to play semantics games. Okay. If you don't want to have a false start with Xavier Chaplin, what do you have to do? He's got to sit and wait for movement. Well, if you do that, what does that mean? That means you're already behind. And some of these plays where he's getting beat so quickly, it's because he's moving so late, because he's unsure about the snap count. Could it be that the clap issue? Could it be the clap issue? Sure, it could be that, especially on the road. I would have to go back and look at your procedural penalties at home versus on the road to see if that's an actual thing. And who knows, next week when we play Georgia at home, when we get on offense, obviously going to be a little bit quieter and you'll be able to hear that clap. You may not have any procedural penalties and the offensive line may play a little bit better. But that can't be the way this thing plays out, that it only works at home. And it can't be the way this thing plays out that there's nothing you can go to remedy it if that starts becoming an issue. The first false start, if Chaplin says, I can't hear it, I can't hear the clap, or I don't know what the cadence is because it's too loud. You got to have a solution, like immediately. Theirs was to go to the huddle. Maybe that's the case. But even that doesn't, to me, even going to the huddle to me does not help you with the snap count and the cadence. Because you still got to go line up and you still got to go from there. Everybody has to be on the same page. Everybody has to know when to go. So it's a reaction. I'm sorry, it's just natural. It's not a reaction waiting for I'm having to put duct tape on the issue by just watching for movement, and then I'm late no matter what. Or if I see the wrong movement, I jump off sides. I'm sorry, I have a false start. That to me is easy. That's just reps and solutions. You got to be able to have those. You got to be able to come up with those. It can't just be hands in the air. Well, this is the way we do it. And if they can't figure it out, I don't know what to do. Got to be, that's simple stuff at this level that you got to be able to fix. The last piece is going to be harder, and it could be something that's just not fixable because it's something that's carried over from his last team, from fall camp, through every single game. And this is Jackson being late on throws and being late making decisions. I haven't seen it this bad maybe ever. The inability to pull a trigger, just simply pull the trigger. The inability to, find a play, be able to throw open a receiver, be able to anticipate, be able to see a route opening up before it's actually open. There's 2 plays. The second play of the game, it's a tight throw. Okay, it's the rollout with a stick on the outside. It's a tight throw, but it's there. And most quarterbacks, that to me, you know what that play was? That play was almost a one-person read. That play was a 100%er. You don't even have to think. All you have to do is roll and throw Malcolm open, anticipate where he's going to make his break, and you can look at it. You go watch Aaron Murray's breakdown. You can go watch it back on the game. Whenever Malcolm, I believe it was Malcolm on that side, whenever he makes his break, there's separation. The ball has to be on him. You have to be able to anticipate that. Later in the game, you ran another rollout play. It's almost another one of those 100%ers. You look at Malcolm again. It's not a big window. And look, when you're playing SEC teams with SEC talent, the windows are not going to normally be super big. He's coming across the middle, and then boom, he's wide open, but you wait just a fraction second of a too long, and the route's undercut, and it's almost an interception. Or just simply dropping back, looking. I don't know where to go with the ball. So I scramble, or I take a sack, or I keep drifting back and get sacked. I've seen it in every game now in some form or fashion. Even against Baylor, there was times. Now, he reacted, and Baylor's defense is really bad, so he was able to make something out of nothing a lot of times. But that's something that I don't know that can be fixed. That is a mental, in golf they call it the yips. And I guess maybe you can have it at different levels where, like a catcher can't throw it back to the pitcher. He can fire it down to second base if you're stealing and get you out. He can, pick you off at first on a pitch out, or he can he can throw it all over the field, but for whatever reason, getting it back to the pitcher. I've seen. I used to have a guy that we played in high school. We played him every year, I guess 2 years, and he couldn't throw it back to the pitcher, so he underhanded it back to the pitcher. He threw it like a softball every single pitch, especially if people were on base, because he would either overthrow it, throw it in the ground, and then he'd get by him, and then we would advance. So he underhanded it back to the pitcher. There's little things like that is something that he could not fix. So he had to find something, an alternative solution. I don't know that there is an alternative solution to throwing it on time. The being late thing is sinking so many plays. It makes it to where there's almost no plays you can call. Why is it we talk about contested catches? Why does it seem like everybody's contested? Because we're late on everything. Sure, there's some stuff that you could scheme maybe a little bit better to get guys more open, but you're late on everything. So if you're late, obviously that just gives the defense more time to get on you. And it makes that window seem artificially smaller than it actually was. This is the only reason I would ever be okay, in my opinion, This is just me. Like, I know a lot of people are quick on the trigger to want to put the backup in, but this is one of the only reasons why I would be okay with it this early, because I don't know that that's fixable. There were some things with some of the other quarterbacks that I think you could fix. This is like a mental block that I don't know is 100% fixable. And I don't really know how you play call around it. So that's something they're going to have to really have some deep discussions about over this next week. Because if you want any chance of beating Georgia, Jackson has all the tools to be able to do it. But you got to be able to diagnose a play. You got to be able to throw a receiver open. You got to be able to anticipate breaks. You got to be able to do all those things. And you can't just wait for somebody to be wide open to make a decision. This league's too fast. This level of football is too fast. That may work in high school. It's not going to work in college. That's what they talked about his problem was at Oklahoma. That's what they talked about his problem was in spring. I'm sorry, not in spring, in fall camp. And then that's what we've seen through the first 5 games. Hold it. Can't do that. You can't do that at this level. So 2 of those things, I think we got to get on the same page. We need to earn our paychecks and figure it out. Craft a game plan to what your strengths are and go from there. Build from there and screw what it looks like. Forget who cares. Move the ball, move the chains, score some points. If it averages 150 yards passing, who cares? Reboot after the season and figure out what you're going to do and who you want to be after that. Figure out the communication on the offensive line. Those guys are talented. You can't plug and play if you can't get the communication right. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter who you sub in. If you can't communicate, you're wasting your time. And then the last piece, I don't know how you fix it. That's going to be tough. So do you pull the plug? Do you make a switch? I would understand it if you did. And then on the flip side, if Jackson somehow figures it out like that in the next 2 weeks, I think he can be a really good quarterback because he's got a lot of great tools. We'll see we'll see what happens. Let me know what you think in the comments. Did I miss anything? Do you disagree? Do you agree? And we'll keep plugging, man. We got obviously the rest of this week, and then you got Georgia coming, and there's got to be some big changes if you want to win that one and you want to have any chance to achieve any of your goals this season. So we'll see what happens, guys. Thanks for joining. We'll be back again soon. It's another episode of the Top Button Podcast. Stay buttoned.
Thanks for listening, and drive home safely.